Eligibility is expanding to include Minnesotans with specific underlying health conditions like sickle cell disease, Down syndrome, and those in cancer treatment. It also includes those with rare conditions or disabilities that put them at a higher risk of severe illness. And finally, food processing plant workers.
Meat packers themselves are being infected without letting us know that they are, because they are in fear, they are afraid of losing their jobs.
The state predicts it could take only a couple weeks to vaccinate this group. While they're given priority, providers will also have the opportunity to open up appointments to those in the next tier, Tier 3, the state's biggest priority group of about 1.7 million people. That includes those with health problems ranging from diabetes to heart conditions and a range of essential workers from airport security to food servers. It includes those 45 and up with one qualifying medical condition or those 16 and older with two. Minnesotans 50 or older in multi-generational housing also qualify. By middle to late April, Walz thinks they'll be able to open it up to all Minnesotans.
The Biden administration's promise to us that everybody who wanted the shot could get it by the end of May, I think that's going to even speed up even more, because I think their timeline is accelerating, which is accelerating our timeline of getting them out.
Top priority is still being given to those who are already eligible for the vaccine, for example, those who are 65 and older. If you haven't gotten the vaccine yet, they really recommend that you look at the Vaccine Connector and sign up for guidance. Coming up tonight at 6, we're going to be talking about what this could mean as far as lifting restrictions, as well as the Twins home opener. Back to you, Lauren.
All right, a lot of big questions there. Heidi, thank you.